Studio. We are pleased to welcome now Leah Long with the National Federation of Independent Small Business. Leah is the Mississippi and Louisiana Director. Hey, Leah, how's it going?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on today.
You bet. So we wanted to get your take on what you're hearing from your members with respect to the current state of the economy. Are small businesses, are they optimistic, pessimistic, kind of somewhere in the middle? What's going on?
Yeah, so our latest report that came out is the optimism index has increased slightly in August for these small business owners, and they've expected, stronger sales expectations and they've kind of improved earnings. But one of the biggest issues that they continue to face, and I know we talk about it every month that I'm on here, is the labor issue, quality, a good skilled work.
All right. Okay. See if we can get her back on. So while Rhino's working on that, Mike in Simpson County, this question about the continuing resolution, it does not look like at this point we're going to get one. And again, the big sticking point is the Democrats want. Okay, we got Leah Long. Leah, you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm not sure what happened.
I'm not either. But all right, so you were just saying that the optimism level ticked up a little bit, but they're still having problems just getting the labor, the skilled, qualified labor they need.
Yeah, definitely. They're having issues. We talk about it every month that you've got to have a strong workforce, and that's something that we're just seeing all over the country, but also in Mississippi, that you've got to have qualified workers to fill these jobs. And, we talk about, the difficulty in certain construction areas, manufacturing, transportation, energy.
All right. Something going on there. We'll see if we can figure it out. So, once again, back on the CR, it's really kind of anybody's guess as to who will get hung with it. Usually it's the party that is not in power, that is seen as the obstructionist, and that would be the Democrats in this case. However, I think it's fair to point out that there are a lot of people across this country that are about to receive notifications concerning their health care premiums, both folks that get their coverage from their employer as well as those. Okay, we got Leah. Leah, we got you back. Hopefully we can keep you connected there.
I'm not sure. We're having major technical difficulties.
No telling. So labor, a problem.
A problem, yes, especially in the construction, manufacturing, transportation industries. And you think about it, those are, a strong, skilled, whether you're a trade skill worker, being able to have employees there to fill those job openings is becoming quite difficult.
Yeah, but, there are reports nationally, Leah, that indicate the labor market is actually weakening somewhat. So that would indicate that there are an excess of workers seeking employment relative to the jobs that are available. Many analysts believe that employers are just kind of waiting to see the full impact of the tariffs that were imposed, and the president announced some big tariffs this morning as well, before they make a move and start filling their ranks.
Everything, that affects the business, it does add to the cost of doing business. So the outside things like tariffs, while we haven't necessarily polled our members directly on that because we do represent kind of every industry in the economy. So, some tariffs may affect other industries, different than others. But, everything does add to it. I know when I kind of had a technical difficulty, you were talking about healthcare premiums, this kind of stuff. I mean, everything adds to the cost of doing business. And, healthcare issues and the premiums of insurance, that's one big thing that we're hearing that is driving the cost of doing business up just for small business owners for sure.
Yeah, so the president, you probably saw it this morning, announced a 25% tariff on heavy, is what he calls heavy big trucks that are made outside of the country and imported into this country, and also I believe 100% tariff on imported pharmaceuticals, certain imported pharmaceuticals, which that health insurers are figuring out how that affects their cost of doing business, and they're likely to increase the cost of coverage, and of course that would trickle down to employers and companies.
Absolutely. And, we talk about this a lot that, as a small business owner, you invest a lot of capital into hiring somebody because some of these people don't have HR teams. They don't have that, so you're training there. And you also want to offer a great compensation package. And, health insurance is one of them. If they're able to offer it, most small business owners do. If they don't, then they kind of come up with other ways. But being able to keep and retain someone that works in a small business owner is super important. A small business is super important because you've invested in that person. You want them to stay. You want them to continue to grow their skill set. And I think, we talk about health insurance. That's one of those big things, too.
Sure.
You want to be able to offer that and keep that employee there for a while. And if that cost continues to rise, the small business owners have to eat that cost. And like we say, at the end of the day, it's a balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely, and it seems like it's a constant guessing game that companies, business owners have to deal with, especially small and mid-sized businesses, when things are just hitting them from all directions, and it kind of happens randomly and without a great deal of warning, and then they have to react to that.
Absolutely.
Of course. Yeah. So you, the NFIB produced a press release. We have that in our hands right here, where it was indicated that 114 of Mississippi's state legislators, 31 in the Senate, 83 in the House, achieved a 100% NFIB voting record for the 24-25 legislative session. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so super proud of them. We love legislators that are pro-small business, and that's one thing. We're talking about workforce, and, we kind of poll the legislators on their votes in certain issues, taxes, workforce development, insurance, whatever it may be. And, those legislators that received 100%, that's amazing. I mean, there's some that received 90, 80, but every vote that they take affects a small business owner. And, this is how we kind of hold them accountable. And I'm excited to see as we continue to get closer to this next session, kind of see what they're going to do for small business. I know everyone's in the planning mode, but, we would love to also continue to see things done about workers' comp reform, continuing insurance reform, workforce development. Last year there was a ton of bills on getting, people back to work. How do we continue to make our workforce in Mississippi skilled? How do we get them in the right opportunities so we can fill these jobs? And I think that that's something the Mississippi legislature is going to continue to build on. Anything
in particular, Leah, that your organization is going to be pushing for in the upcoming legislative session?
Mainly just workers' comp arena. We talk about that just in general. We talk about insurance rates and health care and making sure that, there's no overly mandated health insurance mandates that are going to come down, and, protecting the small business owners and making sure that they're not overly regulated. And that's something we'll continue to watch. And like I said, workforce development will always support bills like that. I'm excited Mississippi's continue. Obviously, I do Louisiana, so it's always kind of competition I like to see during sessions, like which one's going to have a better session. Which one's going to do better for small business owners. And so obviously the tax reform thing has been huge in Mississippi, so I'm continuing to see on that how we can continue to make sure that that continues to get phased out and goes down to zero.
Leah, I thought that the most critical and most beneficial provision in the One Big Beautiful Bill Act was the return of 100% deduction, the so-called immediate expensing for capital investment made in a given year, total write-off of that rather than depreciating those investments over a period of time. Are you hearing that from your members as well?
Yeah, some of them definitely, they voice their opinion on that. And obviously from NFIB standpoint, our biggest part of the Big Beautiful Bill was the 20% small business deduction that made permanent. That was a huge thing.
Sure.
We're still kind of coming off that win. And, we are very thankful for Congress and President Trump to sign that, because that is a huge thing for small business owners. It's continued to help their optimism because they can plan for their future. And, of course, the money that they save there, they're going to reinvest back in their company and reinvest back in Mississippi.
Yeah, that makes sense. I believe that probably was the most critical element to the small and mid-sized business, most of whom, of course, are organized as sub-S corporations. And so that 20% deduction is big time. Probably the larger companies are seeing more benefit since it doesn't affect them from the immediate expensing provision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely. It kind of just depends on the size of your business and where you fall in that.
Yeah, but certainly having clarity about individual rates and that 20% pass-through deduction, I mean, that's huge for your members. I'm not sure what would have happened to our whole dang economy had that not been extended.
Absolutely. I mean, basically every small business owner was going to be hit with a huge hike, a tax hike, and that could put a smaller business out. I mean, you think about that, and so that's one thing we tried to reiterate to Congress, that this is going to drastically affect the economy and the businesses in every state.
Yeah, and we got about 30 seconds, but also increasing and extending the exemption for estate taxes is pretty important to small and mid-sized business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you continue to do on that for tax front of it is very important.
No
for
doubt.
Small business owners.
Leah Long, National Federation of Independent Small Business, the director for Mississippi and Louisiana. Appreciate it, Leah. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
We're coming right back.